But yeah, moving on to the last thing in TV and film. Godzilla -1.
Yay!
This has the potential to become an all-timer for me.
Ooh.
So the projector broke the first night I went to try to see it. Which is the first bad movie theater experience I've had, surprisingly enough. But it was bound to happen with how frequently I go to the movies. But they gave me a voucher for a free movie, and I went back to see it the next night. The night the projector broke, I kept hearing a voice that sounded familiar to me that was really loud. And I was like, that sounds like my friend Lily, but it couldn't possibly be. And if I just stood up to look, I would have saw that it was them. But it wasn't until I was walking out after they said it was broke that I saw them, and we locked eyes, and I was like, hey, I know you. But yeah, it's a friend I went to high school with. And then coincidentally, next Thursday, there was this alumni event at Baltimore Design School that I also saw a lot of my friends at. And then we went back to Lily's place and hung out for a little bit. So that was cool.
Oh, that's slay.
But besides the point, I felt emotions I've never felt in my entire life before while watching a movie. This movie was beautiful, and it brought me to tears several times. The WB and Legendary films made me accustomed to Godzilla being a reluctant hero who defends humanity from greater threats. But I was always aware that Godzilla was originally a metaphor for nuclear weapons and their effects. And this film tells a heart-wrenching story about the effects of nuclear war. Godzilla is the villain of this film, and they are terrifying from the first moment you see them. But what's even more terrifying is the very realistic damage they cause. I couldn't help but feel grateful and privileged for the life that I lead and the time that I live in, because I know not everyone is so lucky. And with the pervasiveness of the massacre of Palestinians by Israel on the internet, I can't help but to start noticing the parallels in all of the media I consume. And, Godzilla -1 is no exception. How could I not think about the people being ravaged by real life monsters as I watch this film that is a direct commentary on the effects of war? It's a sad thing to think about, but I can only imagine how Godzilla fans in Palestine will feel when watching this movie. I couldn't recommend this movie more. And though I do have to warn you that it's very depressing, it's not overwhelmingly so, because the resilience of humankind and our indomitable spirit is a huge theme, and it ultimately does end on a high note. It's a real good movie. The main character is a kamikaze pilot who essentially fakes that his plane needs to be fixed so that he can get out of committing suicide. And then Godzilla attacks, and his plane is destroyed, so he obviously can't fly anymore. And then he goes back home, and his home is Tokyo. Or no, it's not Tokyo. It's one of the places that was bombed. And yeah, and he has to go through all of that. He has to go with people like some people, not all of them, ridiculing him for being a kamikaze pilot that survived, which means that he didn't do his job. And also the fact that his parents died from the bombings, and a bunch of other stuff that goes on. And the PTSD of Godzilla massacring a bunch of soldiers in front of him. So yeah, dude, the scene when Godzilla comes and destroys this, I forget what city it was, is horrifying. It is scary. It was scary. It really caught me off guard how scary it was. And just watching it and seeing it, I was just like, oh my God, this is insane. It's such a good movie. And it takes so long before they play the Godzilla theme. But the moment when they play the Godzilla theme in the third act is so hype. Because Godzilla's theme is so good. The Godzilla theme song is amazing.
It is.
But yeah, I would definitely. People should watch this movie. It's a good movie. It's an important movie. Despite it being decades since the bombing of Japan, the nuclear bombings, it's still it still rings true today when it comes to just war in general and its effects. It's a great movie. It's for sure going to go down as one of my favorite movies of all time. But in a bit of a kind of lighter note, I want a VR Godzilla game where you play as a Japanese soldier during World War II, flying a fighter jet and engaging in combat on the ground before Godzilla enters. And you have to work with American soldiers to take down Godzilla. And maybe Godzilla is smaller than usual, but still huge. And their radiation turns humans into zombies. That way you have some fodder enemies to fight. I feel like that would be cool. Because in my mind, I'm like, how does a Godzilla game work? And I was like, oh, you just make it a short experience type game and put it in VR where you're there experiencing Godzilla's destruction. And it's not very long. It's like a handful of hours. That's how you make a good Godzilla game. Make it very atmospheric and terrifying. Essentially make it a horror game.
Godzilla horror game would go insane.
Yeah, but yeah. Godzilla -1 was incredible.